What goes up must come down. Welcome to the Brand Breakdown. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Courtney.
And this is where we're going to track the rise and fall of big brands, from companies to celebs to pop culture phenoms and everything in between. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back. I want to apologize to begin with for my scratchy voice. It is allergy season in the South. So if you walk outside for 5 minutes, you are covered in yellow. So it always makes my eyes red and my voice scratchy. So I'm sorry in advance if I have any kind of vocal fry. I apologize. We were going to do a weekly wrap up, which is what today's wrap up is, on Friday. But as you know, on Friday, we got some really sad news out of Kensington Palace. And so out of respect for Kate and her sweet family, we wanted to wait a few days before we actually talked about it, out of respect for her and her family. So we did decide, though, that we would like to talk about it because we have been actively following her in her conditions and her surgeries and all of the trolls and all that stuff on social media. And so we want an opportunity to talk about how we feel about it, what we think is going on, and then to kind of combat some of the trolls that we are currently seeing online. So as always, I have with me Courtney, who's our royal aficionado. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Your voice sounds absolutely fine, by the way. You
Seriously, like in my head, it feels super duper scratchy, and I feel like I sound awful.
Nope.
So thank you. You're sweet, but you're always sweet. Okay, let's talk about the big announcement, because I think I was in the car coming back from the beach, and you and you sent me a text message, and I ended up calling you because it was so flabbergasting. So let's talk about the announcement when it came out, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So around 1:30, or like shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern time on Friday afternoon, a lot of reporters started tweeting that there was an embargoed announcement coming from Kensington Palace at 2 p.m. and that there would be, that was pretty much it. That was pretty much all they had. There's an embargoed announcement coming, and the BBC will be airing the announcement. And I found out because my husband sent me a text message at like 1:59 because I was working. And then he popped his head into my office at like 2:01. And he said, and I quote, "I think your girl has cancer." And I was like, "What?" And I quickly took to Twitter and saw the transcript of Catherine's message. So at 2 p.m., what had happened is that the BBC aired a video message from Catherine that was filmed. I believe it was filmed on Wednesday. It was filmed by the BBC. It was filmed at Windsor. And it was Catherine sitting on a bench looking very stoic and very beautiful as always, but a little bit drawn, a little bit stressed out looking. You could tell, if you were watching the video, you could actually see the calm on top kind of kicking feet on the bottom, because her hands, she kept kind of like wringing her hands a little bit, even though her facial expressions seemed very controlled. So you could tell there was a little bit of like anxiety there. And she delivered about a 2-minute speech where, according to reporters, she wrote the whole thing. She wrote it very quickly. And not very quickly, as in like it was rushed so that she could put it out right away, but she knew exactly what she wanted to say and how she wanted to say it. She'd clearly been thinking about it for a while. And I can just read a little bit of it for you. Yeah, but so she says, "In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I am now in the early stages of that treatment." So that portion of the announcement, the speech, has a lot of good news in it. It says that there had been cancer, so that gives me the impression there is no longer cancer, and that her medical team recommended preventative chemotherapy, which some people have been speculating about that word. It's ridiculous, but essentially my non-medical professional take here is that she had a surgery for something that at the time they thought was non-cancerous. Turns out it was, but it's okay because they took it all out anyway. They got clean margins with the surgery, and now her chemo is just to ensure it does not come back. So it sounds like it's ultimately, shocking news, but news that is trending in the right direction. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at with Kate right now.
Well, so after we talked, I went and talked to a couple of people in medical profession, and a couple of things they said to me, because you and I are not experts, but I don't know that we should speculate on what kind of cancer it is. I'm not sure that we should do that, but they speculated on what kind of cancer they thought it might be based on what she had said. And I think that it would be good for us to have a couple of people on maybe later this week or next week to talk about what it means to have preventative chemotherapy, what it means to have surgery and remove most of the cancer or all of the cancer, and then how you follow up with that and how, what happens after that. And what does it mean when someone's so young to have cancer? Because she's still pretty young. But if you've been reading the news lately, I think I read 10 articles last week, at least, that talked about the huge rise of cancer among
Mm-hmm.
young people under the age of 50.
Yeah. I saw a lot of those articles saying, though, part of that is that we've just gotten so much better at detecting cancer, and people are much more proactive with their health. You know what I mean? Like 30 years ago, they couldn't do nearly as much imaging and all of that as they can do now. And also, people were like, well, they say to wait until I'm 40 for a mammogram, so I'll wait until I'm 45 for my first one. So I think part of it is just more knowledge and being more proactive. But yeah, then there's also a lot of genetic components and lifestyle
And
components.
lifestyle
Yeah.
and environment. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a ton of articles about nanoplastics and heart disease, nanoplastics and cancer, nanoplastics in your lungs. And all of us are consuming plastic every single day. Even, and I didn't know this, I saw this on a TikTok, but even like the cans, like the aluminum, the cans that like your soup would come in,
Mm-hmm.
that once you pull back the shell of that can, it's still in plastic. I had no idea.
Really?
Yes. So
Huh.
I'll have to send you the TikTok and we can actually post it in the show notes to show that. But I was absolutely flabbergasted. I had no idea that when you were drinking your can of soup, that it was actually also still in plastic.
Yeah, I had no
Um,
idea. That's so weird.
I know, right? Like I
I
was
don't
completely
I
blown
don't
away.
love that.
Um, I don't love that either. And there are some soup makers whose cans are BPA free, and I don't know if they're plastic free, but they're definitely BPA free. Like Eden Organics brand, I know theirs for sure is BPA free, and I think other soup makers and bean makers are doing it now as well. But anyway, that was sort of flabbergasting. But I'll tell you how I reacted to the news, and I went and watched it. Obviously, when I got home, I couldn't watch it in the car. I thought that obviously she, as always, looks beautiful. She seemed very emotional to me, despite her
Mm-hmm.
stoicism, which feels very genuine. Of course, she would be emotional about it. And I think that um, it seems unprecedented to me that she would do the video announcement about her diagnosis, considering how private she has been over the last 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I but I think that she's managing this on her own. And like you and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, never complain, never explain is probably not going to work for the modern monarchy, especially considering where it is right now. And I think that she must be aware of that. Her team must be aware of that. And they're proactively doing things to address it on their terms.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
think that, when she was diagnosed with HG during her pregnancies, she was upfront with what it was. She didn't, leave people to speculate why is she suddenly in the hospital. She said she was pregnant. She said she had HG. Um, and her team has also said that she always intended, when they found out that it was cancer, which apparently was right around the time of King Constantine of Greece's funeral, when William had to pull out of attending not the funeral, the memorial service, and he had to pull out of attending and also of doing a reading, which he was slated to do. So that mysterious, he's no longer attending for personal reasons, 45 minutes before the service started, that was right around, I don't know if they found out that morning or if they had found out the day or two before, but that was right around the time they found out that it was cancer. And um, Kate's team has said she always intended on being upfront about it, but they were waiting for a very specific period of time in which to do that. And that was that first they wanted to make sure that they told their kids and their immediate family and that their kids were okay. They didn't want to drop this bombshell on everyone collectively all over the whole wide world and have their kids have to deal with hearing about it, hearing people talk about it, having people ask how their mother was while they were at school and all of that. And so the statement that Kate gave was, it was recorded last Wednesday by the BBC, as I had said. Last week, there had been these little low frequency rumblings on the internet that there was an imminent update coming via the BBC about a royal family member. And this was like I'm sorry, not last week, but the week before that. The whole week before, people were saying there's an announcement. And it never came to fruition. And people were like, okay, this is just, more people trolling, more people being ridiculous. Now it looks like perhaps it was about what Kate's announcement was on Friday, because if they recorded it on Wednesday, then perhaps the week before they had started, talking about Kensington Palace had started talking to the BBC about like, we're going to need a crew here. We have an update, whatever. So I imagine that's how that started, as they were in the planning stages of Kate making her announcement, and somebody leaked that there would be an announcement coming. And perhaps the BBC didn't really know when she would, you know what I mean? They knew she wanted to make the announcement, but maybe the timing wasn't quite nailed down yet. The second thing is that in addition to wanting to make sure that she told her kids privately and that everybody in her, her parents and her siblings as well, that everybody knew and was not necessarily on board. They don't have a choice about being on board, but, had processed it as much as they possibly could in that short period of time. She wanted to make sure that her kids were done with school. So in the UK, they have a much different school calendar than ours. And so they take an Easter break that lasts for about a month. And then they come back to school for they call it their summer term. And Easter break started on Friday afternoon. The kids were let out of school and they will not be returning to school for a month. And so their announcement was timed to make sure she waited until the kids were done with school and that they would have a month off. So they wouldn't have to hear from their friends, how's your mom? They wouldn't have, questions at the school drop off. Parents wouldn't be like kind of looking at them as like, oh my gosh, look at these people. And so although she had always intended to speak about it, or at least, let people know what was going on, she never intended to kind of try to keep a cancer diagnosis to herself, which she should have been able to do if she wanted to, but I understand.
That was her right.
Right. And yeah. I understand, public figure, future queen, maybe there's a little bit of a need to let people have some insight to something that serious, but if everything is as good as she is saying that it is, that they got the cancer, this is just preventive chemo, maybe she could have actually got away with not saying anything, but that's neither here nor there. But she wanted to make sure that her kids didn't have to deal with it. So she waited until school was out for a month. And now they're out in Norfolk at Inmer Hall. They took a helicopter out there over the weekend, and they'll be spending their time in the country, which is also on the beach. I don't know how that works because we don't really have the country and the beach in the same place here. But they do. So
yeah, I don't really, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in England, but I don't really know. I mean, it's just the coast is different from the beach. It's not even really like the beach. It's like a coast, so it's a little bit different and grayer.
Yeah.
I don't think they're getting like
That's the
85
whole country.
Yeah. I don't think they're getting 85-degree days and sunny like you would in like Charleston or something like that. But anyway, well, so I think one of the reasons that she came out and said something publicly was her choice, but also I know that there's been such rampant speculation and people have been so horrid. And I think that, for the safety and well-being mentally for her kids, I think that trying to stop the trolls in their tracks to some degree is
Mm-hmm.
possibly part of the reason why she came out, to let everybody know, like, hey, I am not a lizard. I did not disappear. I do not have a body double.
Right.
I'm not faking it. And here we go. Because even celebrities, and you and I have talked about this, have been weighing in over the last few weeks in a really
Mm-hmm.
negative manner and saying really negative things and honestly being trolls themselves. And it really is upsetting because those same celebrities, were they going through this same thing, would demand privacy for their lives and would not
Mm-hmm.
be very happy at being trolled themselves.
Right.
So, you and I are not celebrities by any means. Um, and so we don't have the same sway or power or cachet that other celebrities do. And so for a celebrity to weigh in who has 2 million followers, that just thrust the conspiracy into the limelight, and now those celebrities looks like a-holes, frankly.
Yeah. Especially because some of these celebrities are people who we know have gone to great extremes to keep their private life private. And like without naming any names, there have been some of the people I was like most shocked to see comment are two people that have a real like their lives may seem like they're all out there, but there are things about them that are you would think are kind of public knowledge that like they keep very much behind lock and key. And so the fact that they would then go make fun of Catherine and act as if it's like all just a big funny joke that this woman has, you know, she said from day one, her team said from day one, she had surgery, she wants privacy, she'll be back after Easter. That actually still hasn't changed. Her team is still saying she may be back after Easter. We're not sure. It's going to depend on what her doctors say and how she's feeling on a day to day basis. And we're not going to put any big commitments on her calendar right now, but
Right.
we'll see how she's feeling. She may pop up to things from time to time. You know, she may join William at a joint engagement or something like that. So there's a chance that, had she not been trolled so much, she would have just kept to the party line that from the beginning of she had a surgery, she's recovering. You'll see her after Easter. And instead, she was really backed up against a wall and forced to make an announcement that, again, I think she would have eventually, her team said she would have made it anyway. Eventually, I think she would have said, I was actually dealing with cancer, but maybe she would have waited until she was completely done with her treatments and feeling 100% better before having that conversation with the entire world.
The world. Yeah, no, I know it's been terrible. Speaking of which, the entire world. So there have been a lot of people who've, sent their well wishes from all over the world, obviously. All of the heads of state and, many, many celebrities. Jamie Lee Curtis is one of my favorites because she was so mad about the trolling. And then she got out there and was like, leave this woman alone. I just love Jamie Lee Curtis with all my heart.
Hmm.
So, there have been so many well wishes, including our friends in California. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex put out their own
Yeah.
personal message and said they had been in touch privately with Catherine, which I'm sure Harry reached out to William at some point. I don't know if anybody actually talked to Catherine. We weren't there, but I can't imagine that she picked up the phone and was like, "Hey, Haz, what's going on? Yeah, you really threw me under the bus last year, but now that I am sick, definitely let's patch it up."
Right.
Um,
I
I
heard
just,
that
I just can't imagine that happening.
yeah. The current reports are that Meghan and Harry actually found out on TV just the same as the rest of us. They did not get a warning ahead of time. They were not told with the rest of the family whenever that may have been. Um and honestly, I was wondering to myself too if part of the reason that Kate made the announcement is because she did know that there was a chance that some people who would eventually find out would leak it. Like if the entire royal family knew and her whole family knew, and I'm sure their group of friends knew, at some point it was possible that somebody would mention to Harry and Meghan, like, oh, hey, by the way, how's Kate doing? Or like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about Kate's cancer or something like that. And Harry and Meghan would be like, what? And then they would leak it. because as far as we know, they were not told in advance. And then I found it very interesting, again, for like the 900th time, that we hear that Harry and Meghan have reached out privately and this is what they said. And it's like, who's telling us that? Harry and Meghan are leaking. It's not even really a leak, right? That's just like a statement. But they're the ones who are giving the private
Yeah.
conversation information. And it's like, so it's just so ridiculous because they were so upset about like, oh, everybody leaks against us. And even if it's a good leak, it's still very clearly coming from their team.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense that you would say, they had a private conversation. Well, if it was a private conversation, why are we hearing about it?
Right, exactly.
Like that doesn't make sense. Like I understand their statement that they put on their website, our best wishes or whatever. Although
Right.
they called
Because
her Kate instead of Princess Kate or Princess Catherine or whatever.
right.
Which even Biden called her Princess Kate. I mean, come
I mean,
on.
even if they had just called her Catherine, knowing that people don't really call her Kate, you know what I mean? Like within their family, the royal family and the Middleton family, people don't really call her Kate. She prefers to go by Catherine. Um, I think that even if they had just called her Catherine, but they used their titles and they didn't use hers, and that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit because it was like the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have like the best wishes for Kate, and it's like, oh, you mean the Princess of Wales, the future queen? Okay, cool. Just
Yeah, well, so there's two ways to look at that, and I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt because I would like to. So the benefit of the doubt way is to say they say Kate because they want to indicate a familiarity and a love for her
right.
that they have.
Hmm.
The non benefit of the doubt would be we don't respect her enough to use her title,
Right. Yeah.
which I want to give them the benefit of the doubt
And
because
I'm
I
sure
just
you're
do.
right.
So
I'm sure you're right. I'm just feeling extra protective over this woman that I've never met who has no idea that I exist. I'm just feeling very protective over her right now. And
well, right. Yes. We are very vested in people that we will never meet,
yeah.
frankly,
Yeah.
because it's very doubtful that either one of us will be knighted at any point or become a dame.
Yeah.
So
I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
I know, really sad about that. However, because Judy Dench and I could hang out. She could be Dame Judy. I could be Dame Michelle. It would be so cool. But I don't think that's going to happen. So yes, you're right. We are very protective of our people we've never met. Listen, when Diana died, I cried. Me and millions of other people, by the way. So I wasn't alone in that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that was you and like
but yes,
everyone.
yeah. So, but I mean, it's true. We do feel protective over these people. And I think, they are normal people. They do put their pants on one leg at a time and et cetera. And they do have this sweet young family. And I think that's a big part of it too. I mean, what is Louis, 5? He's little.
Hmm. Yeah, he's just
And
a baby.
he is really just a baby. And I remember when I was sick and, we had to tell my son about it. And then he couldn't really visit me in the hospital because it was during COVID. And so they had to secretly wheel me out of the hospital to meet him in the courtyard, which was
Oh.
just, it was so hilarious. All the nurses were like, taking my IVs and wrapping them up. And then they like hustled me out of the hospital and
Oh.
ran me down the sidewalk so I could see him in the courtyard because at that point I hadn't seen him. Oh my God, it was like 2.5 weeks. I don't think I had seen him in
Oh.
2.5 weeks, and he was not doing well at all. And my
Poor
daughter,
baby.
she wasn't she couldn't come. Like she just couldn't come. And so I just remember, how hard it was having those conversations. And, I had a feeding tube and, all the things. And my son was like, oh my God. And he was 10.
Right.
So he had a much greater maturity than a 5-year-old.
But also a 10-year-old
So
has the understanding. I think 5-year-olds don't necessarily have that understanding of like mortality and how bad something could be. Whereas a 10-year-old knows about, like, I'm thinking of George, right? He's 11, I think. He'll be 12 in July. And like, he knows that like cancer can mean really, really scary stuff. And Gabe knew at 10 years old, like, your mom being in the hospital for 2.5 weeks, that can mean really, really scary stuff, you know? Whereas,
And then I went away again for another 2 weeks.
right. So that's got to be, terrifying to a kid. Whereas for Louis, a kid, he's 5 years old, he has some idea maybe of some stuff. And granted, like, his great grandmother just died, and that was a huge thing on a massive scale. So I'm sure they've had to have the conversations about like death and dying and all of that. But he probably doesn't have like the word cancer is probably not a word he's really heard before, you know? So like the age range that they're dealing with of, George, who's 12, who's probably going to be horrified by hearing his mom has cancer, and Louis, who's 5, who's probably going to be like, okay, so you'll get better though, right? Like 5-year-olds kind of have that mentality. Um, it's got to be tricky to like deal with all of that. I hope I never have to, knock on wood. I hope I never have to. Oh gosh. I don't want to think about it. Makes me sad.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I even just recounting that just now kind of made me teary because you think about, not for me, but you think about your babies, and
Right.
you know, it's so hard. Um, it's so hard. Anyway, so I do think that, our some of our well wishes and our love and our protection towards her come, because she's also a mom, a young mom, and it gets me every time when people are ill and they talk about their young families, and
Mm.
just the word young, it just makes me feel like, oh my God, they're so young. You know what I mean? Like it just does it to me. Like I don't know what that is, but um,
Yeah.
just
And then, I
thinking
mean,
about people's kids.
also, like, I just keep thinking about William. So, like, Kate's got to go through this, right? And she's got her kids to think of. And, we know her mom was with her looking. I feel like the fury on Carol Middleton's face in that car photo from TMZ just has so much more impact behind it now, because at first I just thought they were annoyed. And now I feel like Carol was actually probably, like, knowing what we know now, she was probably fuming and wanted to like get out of her car and punch the photographer. Um,
Oh, I'm sure.
but like thinking about like William, his mom died. His grandmother and grandfather died within 2 years of each other. His father has cancer. His wife has cancer. He's taking care of his 3 kids. Granted, they do have Nanny Maria, but she is not like a live-in nanny. And I think the older the kids are, the maybe more hands-off as she is, because like the kids are in school all day. So she's probably there a little bit less than she used to be. Um, William has, with his father out of work right now, William is the de facto, Camilla is still obviously the queen, but William's kind of becoming like the face of the family a little bit. Um, like the pressure he must feel. And then I just can't help thinking 6 years ago, if this happened, William and Harry would have been leaning on each other so hard,
Right.
because that's another situation of like, there is nobody else in the world who could know what William was going through except his brother. Like, they've both lost their mother. That is their father going through cancer. It's William's wife, but Harry always said Kate was the big sister he never had, and they adored each other. And like, Harry would have been William's biggest kind of like
Rock. It would have been his
support.
rock.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm with you. Like, I think it's so tragic what's happened to their relationship. I mean, it's just that whole sibling bond. If you have a sibling that you've been very close to and then those things break down, it's so difficult. I just hate that for them. But I do want to follow up on the William taking over, stepping in on the royal front. I did hear today on the news and read that Charles is doing very well in his treatments, and that we should expect to see him at some engagements in the next few weeks.
Yeah. So I had heard that the king is doing really well. His nephew, Peter Phillips, who is Princess Anne's son, he actually did an interview over the weekend saying that his uncle was feeling frustrated because, his doctors were kind of being like, take it easy, and things aren't moving as fast as he would like, because the king is looking forward to a very full summer of doing as much as he can with engagements and kind of getting back out there. Um, but of course, anybody who goes through cancer treatment has to be careful with their immune system and being in large crowds. So the summer is where he will probably get to come out a bit more because a lot of the engagements are outdoors instead of in, a small confined room. So everything is seeming very positive with the king as well.
So I'm so glad to hear that. And we haven't heard much word from Fergie yet, but she is the third member of our royal family who
Mm-hmm.
also has cancer. She has skin cancer. I assume she's being treated for that. Do you know if she did chemo and radiation or if she just did topical chemo like I did?
I am not sure. I believe that they caught it early, she said, and she was just grateful to her team. So I think she never specified what her treatment was going to be. I imagine it may just be kind of a topical, like a Mohs surgery to remove a spot and then a topical, because there was no specification about chemo and radiation. And we've seen her kind of out and about a little bit. So I don't think there's concerns about immune system type of
Okay,
situations.
okay, that's good because
Yeah.
Mohs is like the best surgery to keep those scars at a minimum.
Hmm.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad Dr. Mohs, who invented it, I think. So happy that he invented that surgery. It's so great for people who get skin cancer. So, what else do we have going on in the royal news this week? Anything else we want to chat about?
So the only other big thing goes back to our dear friends in Montecito. It looks like American Riviera Orchard is seeking a CEO. So we had a soft launch of a brand that did not have leadership in place, which I thought was an interesting tactic. But looks like they are looking for a CEO, which is a signal that hopefully we'll see more from the brand soon and maybe have more of a hard launch to come shortly.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You know, you and I have received some feedback that we don't know anything about branding and et cetera, but which is interesting considering that's what we do
That
for
we're
a living,
just
but whatever.
stay at home moms who like to gossip and
Yeah.
not people who have full time
Which
jobs.
Which, P.S., if I was a stay at home mom who just wanted to gossip, that is my prerogative, and I fully embrace that.
Yeah.
Because I love stay at home moms because let me just tell you, stay at home
Oh,
moms
I
work their
couldn't do
freaking
it.
asses off. Like they work their asses off. I was a stay at home mom multiple times during my last 18 years. I've had multiple times where I have stayed at home and just taken care of the kids and haven't worked and done that. And P.S., number one, I loved it. Number two, it was harder than my real job in many ways. I loved it so much, and I especially loved it when I did it when my kids were really little. My son, I was a stay-at-home mom, gosh, probably a couple of years when they were like 3 and 6 or 7, and did that for a couple of years and then went back to work and then had another couple of years. I think I've done it like 3 times where I've had like 2 year intervals where I stayed home with them. And I loved it. Like I loved it. I loved doing all the things and getting on the floor. And, they still did school and daycare and things like that, but only part time for daycare because I loved spending time with them. I was so old when I had my kids. I wanted to spend that time with them. So I loved it. But I didn't have two boys that were beating each other up every day either. I had a
Yeah,
girl and a
I
boy.
think they're just like trying to give me a heart attack. Like their goal every day is like, can we scare mom so much that she actually has a heart attack this time? I think that is what their daily goal is. So it's stressful here sometimes, but I do love, like, I love spending time with them, and I love seeing how goofy and silly they are. And obviously, like, they're my kids, and I would do anything for them. But they're just so high energy. I just need a break from them, and work gives me that break. And for somebody to be like, oh, you're just a stay-at-home mom who gossips, it's like, no, I'm a work from home mom with 2 kids who is also, has this podcast on the side that is doing very well, by the way. And like, nobody forces you to listen. If you don't like what we have to say, scroll on to the next one and find someone that says what you want to hear.
Yeah, I just, it was whatever. But anyway, circling back to American Riviera Orchard, I still can't say orchard. So sorry. Um, So there's been a lot of feedback over the last week and a half or so since she launched her new brand, just on the pieces that she has launched.
Mhm.
And our original assessment is right in line with the assessment of companies like Ad Age and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, that the brand just isn't as engaging or as robust or as unique as perhaps she would have wanted it to be. Um, and probably needs a little massaging. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
Um,
It felt a little like the fact that there was a soft launch that then nothing happened after. Like, usually you have a soft launch and then it's like a little bit of a teaser thing. And then you might see like a couple products or the website goes live or you have some idea of what the heck it is they're going to be doing, but like nothing. We got nothing. And so it just makes me feel like it was a little bit rushed, maybe, to capitalize on maybe some attention that they were getting during a very hectic time for the royal family. And I would have advised them to not do that.
Yeah, it does seem like she rushed to market with something that wasn't ready to go to market yet. And it doesn't seem, based on the fact that she hasn't hired a CEO, that they had a go to market strategy, which, hello, people, like that is really fundamental when launching a brand. You have to have a go to market strategy. And it doesn't feel like they have that either, because if she doesn't want to be CEO of the company as someone like Gwyneth Paltrow is CEO of Goop, then either A, she doesn't want the experience of doing it, B, she doesn't have the experience to do it, or C, she went to market early. She launched too early. She gave us a sneak preview too early. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, I do think, if Megan is sitting looking at her brand and she's like, listen, I know that I'm the visionary, but I am not the CEO. I don't have the experience or the expertise to like captain that ship. Good for her. Like, it's so good when people recognize their weaknesses and are able to delegate those, or when they know what their strengths are and knows what their passion is and they want to stick with that rather than spreading themselves too thin trying to be all things. So I'm not knocking her for not wanting to be the CEO necessarily. If she knows that there is somebody who can do it better, um, like that's wonderful. But like you said, like it seems like they didn't have a strategy in place and they kind of put the what's the saying? They put the cart before the horse a little bit.
That's
Um,
correct. Yes, they put the
yeah.
cart before the
They
horse,
were just trying to get
which
out there without a plan and it just seems silly.
yeah, I agree. And if you look at Goop, and I don't buy Goop products because frankly I can't afford them, but I think they're amazing, and I love to look at all the different things that Gwyneth offers and all her advice and her books and stuff. Some of them are so tongue in cheek and so blatantly elitist that she's just playing that up, and it's hilarious. And I love what she does. But she didn't have any experience as a CEO and became the CEO. But she put under her really, really experienced people who have helped drive that brand
Right.
to do what it's doing.
But also think of how Goop started. Maybe we need to do an episode on Goop. But Goop started as a
It was a
newsletter,
newsletter.
right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
that's the same as if Megan had brought back the TIG social media feed or something like that. If she had started there and then grew from there. She didn't like Gwyneth didn't roll out a line of insanely expensive products and be like, here, buy my stuff. Like she built the brand not necessarily from scratch because of course she had already built her professional brand as an actress. Um, but Goop started as a newsletter where she was just talking to people and talking about her favorite products. And then she realized, oh, if people buy the products I talk about, maybe they'll buy the products I buy. So it was a very different trajectory, even if theoretically the end goal will be the same. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I
I
thought
am
that
rooting for
the
her. I'm rooting for Megan. Like I am. I want to see American Riviera Orchard succeed. I don't want it to fail. I just don't know if she went about it the right way.
she could call it Arrow, Arrow,
Yeah, I keep
Arrow.
thinking she could just call it Arrow.
Arrow. Well, I was thinking Arrow, but then there's so many brands called Arrow, so it'd have to be like that. A would maybe Arrow. I don't know. Anyway, she'll figure that out. I'm rooting for her too. I'm not taking anything away from her because she needs a win. And I think that she hasn't had a win in a while. And I think that is because of all of the missteps that she and Harry have had in the last couple of years in terms of deals and books and other books that they didn't write but were instrumental in. Oh my gosh, did you see what Omid Scobie put on Twitter before
Ugh.
Kate's announcement? Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That was so
I truly
crass.
believe. Okay, but here, okay. So I'm not defending him because, I don't enjoy his work, but I don't think he realized what was coming. And I think he deleted the post after. And I think that he must have felt like such a jerk when that announcement happened and he had been doing the countdown or whatever it was that he did that was so
But the
crass
thing
or
is,
whatever.
first of all, when they release those embargoed statements, the journalists who receive the embargo have them in advance. So clearly he's not on that list, right? He did not receive the announcement in advance because he did not know what it said. But he knew there was an announcement coming, and they knew, I believe they knew it was about Kate. I'm pretty sure the reporters were saying like an announcement about Kate is coming at 2 p.m. So he knew it wasn't good. Whatever, they wouldn't have embargoed an announcement about her health being wonderful and she's like coming back to work full time tomorrow. You know what I mean? So he knew whatever it was not good news. And it was just such a, like, he's been in the royal world long enough to have known. Like, as soon as I saw the tweets that were like an announcement's coming at 2 p.m., my heart dropped. When my husband sent me the link from someone in his, like, on his Twitter, which is like all sports people, like, we're talking about it. As soon as I saw that there was an announcement coming, my heart dropped and I was like, oh no, something bad is happening. And Omid Scobie absolutely should have had that same feeling and not gleefully posted a countdown clock. He's so
I think he is
upsetting.
a very bitter man. I think he's a very bitter. His career is ruined, as we know, mostly because of his association with the Sussex brand and the books that he's written in conjunction with the Sussex brand. And they've backfired so spectacularly that it has tanked his career. So I think that he's probably pretty bitter, or at least that's what it looks like. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the guy. Maybe his career is fantastic, but just based on what I've seen and read.
Yeah, I think that he definitely, like, hooked his cart to the wrong horse. To go back to the
Dang, you're
horse.
just going to use that
Yeah.
all day.
To go back to the horse and the cart analogies. Yeah, I think he definitely just went
Oh,
with
he's
the
back.
wrong.
He backed the wrong
He backed,
horse.
there we
He
go. He
backed
backed the wrong
there.
horse.
Yeah, he backed the
Um,
wrong horse.
yeah, he definitely backed the wrong horse. And I think that when Harry and Meghan left, he thought like this was going to be his big ticket, which in some regards it was because he wrote 2 books that did very well. But I think he thought like they were going to become the stars. And if he stuck with them instead of sticking with the royal family, like the royal family was going to be like dust and he'd be with these like rising global megastars. And that is not at all what's happened. And you're exactly right. I think he's very bitter. I know that a lot of the reporters who are on the Rhoda, they make fun of him. Like they all call him like Meghan's friend, Harry's friend, the Sussex mouthpiece. Like nobody refers to him as a reporter. Um, he no longer has his podcast that was part of, I think, ABC News. He no longer has some of his syndicated columns that he was writing. So his career has taken a bit of a hit. And I think it's because he decided that he was going to be the inside source for people who, or rather the mouthpiece for people who were just going to play victim about everything forever. And just didn't work out the way he hoped it would.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Let's not give him any more airtime. Maybe he'll rebound and do something fabulous in the future. We wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, sure.
So
For
I
sure.
feel like that's everything that we have for this week. If there is other breaking news as the week wears on, we will jump back in and do another bonus episode. And we are also trying to line up a couple of doctors just to kind of weigh in on what that means to do preventative chemo because a lot of people don't know. And a lot of people don't know what kind of cancer it is. So we're going to have a couple of doctors who would talk about specific kinds of cancers, whether it be colon or ovarian or stomach or pancreatic or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in
To
your
just
abdomen. So,
yeah, and there are a lot of organs down there. Like okay, like so if you think about it, there's gallbladder, which probably wasn't gallbladder, liver, pancreas, stomach, colon, uh, ovaries, uterus, spleen, and appendix. Did I get them all? Did I miss
Cervix.
any? Cervix.
Plus,
Sorry.
like, your
Is that
whole,
an
like,
organ though? That's
colon.
not an organ.
I think it still counts, though.
Cervix.
You can have cervical cancer.
Oh,
And, like,
for sure you can have cervix.
and, like, you still, like, I don't know if you said, but, like, then you've got, like, your whole, like, small intestine, large intestine, bowel, rectum, like
colon.
colon. Yeah. There's just a lot. There's just a lot of pieces in there. There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot going on
the inside
there,
of you.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you got a lot of organs on the inside of you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you got a lot of guts. But anyway, so we'll have some people hopefully that can kind of break down a little bit about what that would mean if you were being treated for cancer in that way. Just, for my edification, for your edification, and maybe for other people who are listening's edification. Can I say that any more times?
I love that word.
I love that word. It's a good one. It flows. It's very euphonious.
I also love the word efficacy.
That is a good one. Efficacy is a good one.
Efficacy. It's just so fun to say.
It is, or efficacious. Anyway, so there we are with that. So we will just chat later this week. We have a new series we think is starting this week. I'm not going to promise, actually. We keep saying that, and then it keeps on dropping.
We have big plans. Big plans to record an episode.
Yeah. So hopefully that will happen this week. Otherwise, we look forward to chatting with you again on Friday for this week's weekly wrap up in a few weeks.